Hello ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Jim Makes a Cartoon. I'm Jim and I'm making a cartoon. This week we're working on the most recent episode of Dictator Cat. Links are in the usual places. What you see here is me animating a few of the shots for that particular episode. I honestly forgot that I recorded this part of the process, otherwise I probably would have used these shots in the previous episode of the blog. Regardless, here it is, and I'll probably be using more of this in the weeks to come. Speaking of things I probably should have done last week, I hope all my friends in the US had a happy Independence Day. It is actually July 4th as I'm recording this audio, so please forgive me if you hear any fireworks in the background. And my neighbors are the kind of people who decided to start setting off fireworks since last Friday. I know by looking at my analytics that most of you are from the US, but in case you're not, July 4th is the day we in the US celebrate the signing of the Declaration of Independence from England, and to paraphrase The Simpsons, we celebrate the birth of our country by blowing up a small part of it. Fireworks shows are a big tradition representing the explosions and battles of the Revolutionary War, and depending on where you live, you might have the opportunity to see some pretty impressive shows. For example, here in the Atlanta area, we have Stone Mountain National Park, which regularly puts on a laser show and puts on an extra big show every Independence Day. I went there once, and that was enough. It was a great show, but I had to walk about 1.5 miles from my parking space just to get a seat, and that was in the sweltering 90+ degree Georgia summer weather. But yeah, fireworks have reached a whole new level here in Georgia. The state recently loosened its fireworks regulations, so whereas in the past you were basically limited to sparklers and maybe a bottle rocket or those little ash snake things, you can go much bigger now. And we're even starting to see some fireworks stores pop up in strip malls here and there. Before then, in years past, you had to drive to the border of Alabama or Tennessee to get any of the bigger fireworks. Now, I used to be of the opinion that firework regulation was stupid and people knew how to be responsible for them, and for the most part, I think that's pretty true, but that all changed a few years back. So remember the loud neighbors I mentioned earlier? Well, this is a different set of neighbors, but if you live in the US, especially if you live in the South, we all know that one redneck neighbor on the block. In this case, it was my parents' neighborhood, and my wife and I went over to my parents' house on the eve of 4th of July, and their redneck neighbors always had pretty big fireworks displays. They were going at least as far as Alabama and probably further than that to get access to some of the bigger stuff that they had. And so she and I were sitting out on the driveway watching them play with their little fireworks display, and one of them got kicked over and shot within about a foot of my wife's face. That, needless to say, was pretty upsetting. Later on in the night, they didn't light one of the fireworks properly and desperately tried to stomp it out as it was exploding all over the place. So that made me think, yeah, maybe there are certain people who shouldn't have their hands on anything hotter than a sparkler. But still, I do love my Roman candles and the little whirly bobs now and again. You know, the ones that like spin around, you light them on the side? Those things. Someone out there knows what I'm talking about. I don't know what the proper name is. If you do know what the proper name for that whirly bob is, just put that in the comments. Oh, fun fact, I first wanted to go into some of the history of the American Independence Day, but I figured by this time it's been over for long enough and no one's going to care that much anymore. But if you do a Wikipedia search for Independence Day, the first thing that shows up is the 1996 movie rather than the page listing all the different countries' Independence Days. So I had a little laugh at that. But speaking of that, I know that, of course, the United States is not the only country to have an Independence Day. So for those of you who are viewing this overseas, if the country you're in has an Independence Day, what is your celebration like? Do you have lots of fireworks like we do? Or do you do something entirely different? Go ahead and let me know in the comments section. And please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. I really do appreciate it. And I was gonna say do like your mom told you and share, but I feel like that's a little cheesy. I need to think of a new sign off. Maybe something like, remember to stay hydrated. I'll think of something. I'll see all of you wonderful people next Friday.